This is iRacing. It's time for an incredible race around the beautiful circuit of Watkins Glen. Whether you're going to enjoy some of the sights and scenery, well, it's time for a bit of history with our Lotus 49. So let's head down to our track guide here at GSRC.
Welcome to Watkins Glen International. Situated in upstate New York, just south of the Finger Lakes, this track has seen it all. Few road circuits can boast hosting Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, and IMSA during its history. Though it did have a brief fallow period in the early 80s, thanks to the investment of local companies, it's grown into one of the premier road tracks in the U.S. With 4 layouts to choose from that range between 2.5 and 3.5 miles in length, lap times can vary greatly. But it also means it's suitable for lots of different levels of racing, from amateur to pro. The one thing that stays consistent no matter which car and which layout you're using is that Watkins Glen means speed. Many of the straights are very long, and the majority of the corners are fast sweepers. Some of them include a surprising amount of banking as well. Combine that with the proximity of the barriers, and this historic circuit retains a very old-school feel. Drivers in lesser-powered cars can expect drafting battles, while higher-powered machinery will test the skill and bravery of their pilots. Some of the turns are visually iconic, such as the carousel and the S's. Others, like the inner loop, the chute, and turn 9, greatly challenge even the expertly skilled. And of course, we haven't even mentioned the drastic amount of elevation change drivers experience. Between its rich history and popularity among drivers, this track stays busy and seems likely to be that way for a long, long time.
It's round 4 of our Grand Prix Legends, and we're here at the classic boot version of Watkins Glen, located in New York, USA. Joining me in the commentary box, we've got Nicholas Hildebrand on cameras. We've got Daniel Costello, and the cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nicholas, take us through this amazing circuit of Watkins Glen, especially a classic boot layout.
Hey Stephen, great to be here with you. This was essentially the second layout that was ever really devised of Watkins Glen. The first one was slightly different, so we are pretty much 50% period correct for our cars that they were racing here today. But the entire section from the S's front straight, the chute, so basically to turn 5, and then if we would cut out the toe at the back, then the boot, that way to turn 10, that would still all be like the 60s layout. But we have the pleasure of having more racetrack to race, so it's even better. And yeah, it's 5.435 kilometers. If you are American, that's 3.377 miles, and it is a bloody fast circuit.
With 11 corners to mix it up, it's all about those high gear ratios, really maximizing the pace. But we got to remember, the Lotus 49s with lack of grip, they haven't got huge area to play with, is going to really challenge our drivers. So far, from round 1 to round 3, we've seen some amazing side-by-side battles, but we're in for a great fight here at Watkins Glen with 50 cars. But let's take a look at our standings. With our F1s, Andreas Valenteos currently leads on 180 points, with Tupai going and sitting with 15 points behind him. Togo Sutter down in 3rd. Behind him is Nicola Coque, along with Kevin Verbruggen, Gary Ho, Seb Tixier, Pedro Telemodri, and we've got Robert Pumley in 9th. 10th is Michael Gringso. But Nico, take us through on F2.
Well, in F2, we didn't have quite the same dominant performance that Valenteos put in. Helmvey leads with 80 points. Only 5 points behind that is Andreas Hecht in 2nd place. Then we've got Doug Cloud, 15 points overall behind. Andres Bruno, another 10 points further behind in 4th. Alan Graham, only 1 point behind that in 5th. Victor Alonso Diaz, only another point behind in 6th. Then we have Campbell Wallace, 39 points behind in 7th. Then we have Brandon White and Renato Yankee in 8th and 9th, both 46 points behind the leader. And 3 points further back, that's Bo Poulter in 10th.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. And I've got to say, the Lotus 49's been growing in numbers, but it's also been growing in the amount of countries lurking around. Ukraine currently leads the top of the board with Finland in 2nd place. Japan lies in 3rd. Italy in 4th. Netherlands in 5th, followed by Spain, Hong Kong, United States, France, and Germany. And I do know that Daniel will be going and cheering on the Hong Kong brand as he's going and hoping for a top 5. But Ukraine, top of the board. Valenteus dominating at the run, but can he be dethroned? Finland as a Cup of Nations looking to really take that fight to the top.
Well, to tell you the truth, last time it got very, very close. Kotkaniemi and Valenteus fighting for the entire race. This time around we have 19 laps. Open setups as usual, no spare car, so if you crash here, that's it. The drive-through comes at 17x and disqualification comes at 25x. It's now the 4th round, so a third of the season is already over. And, well, let's see. We already had all good things are 3. Let's see if Valenteus can make it all good things and connect the 4.
Well, I've got to say, not easy to go and get off tracks at this circuit. It is absolutely wall-to-wall racing, especially top-end speed. The S's in these cars is absolutely insane. You're going from 4th to 5th. You're hanging on for dear life as you try and keep the power down. It's got tons of power underneath those rear wheels, but unfortunately, in terms of aero grip, well, you got to trust more mechanical, very, very slight in terms of aero. Back in the days of the Lotus 49, this made champions. This made some of the bravest drivers in the world for Grand Prix racing, as we've got a couple of flyers heading off into the distance for their qualifying as it's coming to an end. It is a last-minute run with Toppy currently leading out the chance with a 146.6. Valenteus so close in 2nd place with Kevin Verbruggen holding even closer to him in 3rd. I mean, this is incredible time for our top 3, but it has just been, as we do see Sandeep going and testing what the Onco barrier does and whether the chassis can handle an impact. I think that might be a no.
Yeah, these cars are extremely fragile, much like the real Lotus 49 was. And in the end, this is just an aluminium fuel tank that the driver is sitting in as an afterthought, essentially. I mean, this was already a modern race car back at the time. You know, the 49, obviously, the first car, or one of the first cars to use the engine as a stressed part of the chassis and, you know, helping with the rigidity as well. And you know, being pretty much used for the next 4 years along its developments that it got made. But nevertheless, you know, these cars, they produce lift instead of downforce, so it'll be quite interesting today.
And it's going to be a great one. 19 laps to hold it all together. Qualifying come to an end, and drivers set their sights on to the race. It's round 4. It's all about maximizing the points and seeing who can get their way to the top. And let's take a look at our grid. As on row 1, it's going to be Toppy versus Andreas Valenteus in 2nd place. Kevin Verbruggen holds on for 3rd. Ricardo Ruiz, followed by Jorge Neva, Seb Tixier, Leo Sequeiro, Ovio Tingred, and Bo Poulter in 9th. Gary Ho holds on to the top 10. But Nicholas a little bit further down in row 6.
Row 6 is filled by Last Olsen and Pedro Temeladri. In row 7, in 13th and 14th, we've got John Olsen and Glenn Becker. Next up, we've got Bill Tyler and Aku Liski, quite close together, as this entire grid quite honestly is. In the 9th row, we've got Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado and Benjamin Choco. And then in the 10th row, we've got Kyle Ridley and Josephine Baker.
Josephine recovering, feeling a little bit under the weather, has to deal with row 11, Andres Hercott, along with Mikhail Zabala. Michael Gringsler, Logan Wilson on row 12, Alan Graham in 25th, along with Rikento Jenke, D.W. Holmes in 27th, with Robert Plumley chasing down on 28th, Victor Alonso Diaz in 29th, and 30th is Campbell Wills. A little bit further down, we've got the rest of the pack.
Row 16, Angel Granda and Nick Bubat. Then in row 17, we've got Thomas Sonny Sinner and Connor Babel. Andres Bruno in 35th, Mats Linen in 36th. Then we've got Ivan Mayordomo and Onak Oglaciu. Then the final row, we actually had to quickly hurry on along because this humongous grid is about to get underway.
As they charge off the line, it is gonna be Tope onto a flying start. Valenteus was not able to get the drive and will have to try go around the outside, keeping it all together. Kevin Verbruggen having a go at him into turn 2 as they charge their way through. Tires are cold. Valenteus trying to hold the line, but Tope got the best start of them all and has darted into the lead. Verbruggen keeping into the slipstream and right behind. They've got Roos and Texier fighting each other. They are nose to gearbox at the moment as the field keep their foot firmly planted to the floor. There's no chicane, and it's all about just gently braking through the long right-hander.
Who's the bravest on the brakes, but who is also sane enough not to brake that late at all, because these cars are squirrely, they like slip angle, and, well, you can also actually push a little more. That's what we heard last week in Brands Hatch, that you can actually push with these cars quite a bit more, and everyone's still very, very close as they make their way through the boot, through the toe, actually getting from on camber to slightly off camber up the hill into the next right-hander down this back stretch there. Oh, that's Robert Plumley up the side of the road.
Robert Plumley unfortunately running into a problem, and there's also damage a little bit further down to our grid, but it is 2-3 cars wide as they make their way through. Valenteus now got the Getty up onto Tope and trying to push a little bit harder. And there is Kevin Verbruggen in third, biding his time, waiting for the opportunity. Not often do we see Valenteus sitting behind a gearbox, usually in front, and now is absolutely slugging it out as they come to complete their first lap. It is 1, 2, 3, all on top of one another. Valenteus goes to the outside. Tope trying to hold the inside line, trying to ease on the brakes for turn 1, swings it through up to the S's, still side by side. Verbruggen trying to get the drive as well, but it looks like Valenteus just inching out ahead.
Oh my goodness. Once again in a close battle, those two gave us a lot of entertainment last week, and they're at it again. Amy, obviously very, very good on the starts, but what comes after is just not quite strong enough all the time to go against the current championship leader, as once again down the inside through the long right-hander, and as they make their way downhill to the beginning of the boot, Amy, Valenteus side by side, hard on the brakes, and once again into the left-hander, slightly on camber. That's the beauty of Watkins Glen. Even when you don't have downforce, you have so much mechanical grip to play with in these cars.
And take a look at Seb Texier in fourth, has closed the distance. He's brought Ricardo in for company. Kevin keeping a very close eye on the battle for the lead as it's nearly wheel to wheel and slipping it in between one another. And it's going to be late on the brakes. Valenteus around the outside trying to close the door off, slides out a little bit more. And Tope doing everything he can to bring it back. But it is nose to tail, and our top 10 are still within a second of one another. It is absolutely madness for our Lotus 49s, and we've still got a long race ahead of us, and no one looking to give an inch.
As fast as this circuit is, you will still lose time when you go side by side for half of the lap like these two guys did just now. But it does certainly help with the rest of the pack still keeping up. Look at that long train of cars still all just nose to tail with each other, all looking to make a move. Ricardo Maurice with the fastest lap. Jorge Nieva barely topping that even. And you can see once again here, slightly squirring around. These obviously don't have slick tires. You can see the grooves there, bias ply compound. Not too much grip comparatively, but they still have quite a good power to weight ratio, quite lightweight, just barely over 500 kilos. So they're nimble, they're fast, and Verbruggen uses that nimbleness now to get alongside on the outside.
Trying to launch it down. It's going to be heel toe to change it down the gears. Got to be careful with those revs. Otherwise, you're going to strain the motor. You can lock up the diff. And those straight cut gears coming into effect as Kevin tried his luck but that has allowed Seb to get a little bit closer into the mix. Ricardo, unfortunately, running into a problem, has slipped way out as it's Leo Sequeiro up into 5th. Tingred holding on to 6th. Gary Ho, Nieva into 8th. Olsen going and charging his way through into 9th position. No one giving an inch at the moment. Gary Ho trying everything he can to move further up the order, but has got Nieva on the back of him, trying to push harder and harder and see if he can force a mistake out of Gary Ho. And Daniel Costello is going to be watching Gary Ho here from Hong Kong, trying to will him further up the field.
But that's a tough move to make. You know, you have to constantly watch your back and your front in this current situation. And if you overcook it slightly, if you run a little bit wide, that's off on the runoff. In the first corner, that's not too bad. Then in the entire SS section, you run completely out of runoff. And in the next braking zone, that fast right-hander that we've seen Verbruggen and Courtiniemi go side by side earlier. If you go on the runoff there, you're dead. As Valenteus actually just gets another fastest lap. 4/10 now the gap from P1 to P2 as we're still watching this battle for P6. Right, Nate, P6, P7, P8, this train here making their way up the snaking way of the S's.
I always love seeing Gary Ho's set up that VR headset. He's able to look into the mirrors and is not going to be too keen on it. Also, just beautifully done to get himself more comfortable in the Lotus 49. Tingred trying to move up through the order. Looks on the inside of Leo. Couldn't quite get the drive. Slips back into the slipstream once again, taking a lot shallow of a line to see if he can get the run. And this is Greensler going up on the inside of the 33 as we do have one of the cars venturing off into the background. You talked about what happens when it all goes wrong. Well, we've so far seen a few of them landing up with a bit of a problem. Nick Babbitts trying to move forward in the 31. He's in 29th at the moment and just trying to keep it all together.
Yeah, that corner at the end there, if you don't have the inner loop, that bus stop chicane to slow you down, you approach with such a high speed. It's obviously on camber, but at the very top of the corner, it's basically a crest. So once you're over that, you're then fighting not just with the remaining momentum, but also with, off camber. It's just basically impossible to stop with these cars, I'd say. As we watch Andreas Hecht from Germany, 23rd place all over the back of the two cars in front of him.
Absolutely giving it everything he can and watching out Jason Clapper in 22nd position, hoping to carry the momentum forward for the United States in this monstrous field. 50 starters, but now Jason Clapper down on the inside. Unfortunately, didn't have the run out of the final corner. Back into the slipstream. Once again, trying to see if he can get the jump down the inside. As we do have a couple of cars exiting pit lane, rejoining the race. Wonderful to see drivers not giving up. They're going to see it through to the end, no matter the cost.
And the cost can be quite bad, of course. Watkins Glen, they actually stopped going here because drivers felt it was too dangerous. Luckily, the only danger we're facing here today is for everyone's safety rating if they go off. Albert Tangerate, not really too bothered with that, as he's still all over the back, trying to break into the top 5. The Norwegian still going a very strong pace, right behind Tixier. Enter Sequeiro right behind him.
Seb in a little bit of no man's land at the moment. Got so much air in front of him that he's got no slipstream and is just ahead of Leo, who's got a bit of a problem behind him. Nieva trying to gain a little bit of momentum on Gary Ho, who closes up under the braking as we jump on board. Looking at the left-hand front suspension, you could see how much it actually moves around. These cars take a little bit of work to set up, and Nieva trying to do everything he can to move forward. Through the long left-hander, carries a lot of momentum on Gary Ho, heading towards the final corner. It's down through the gears, heel and toe, in through the dirt. Going to upset the drive on the exit. Had to wait it out, and you could see how much time he actually lost on Gary Ho. Just not able to carry the momentum through as they dive to turn 1, but not as confident on the brakes.
And that's one of the big breaking points here. You can be very, very controlled and confident on the throttle. Obviously, this is a car with monstrous power and torque. You know, the DFV, Cosworth in the back of that car, the first V8 that actually managed to match V12 engines at the time in power. And Jim Clark described this as, you know, at 6,000 RPM, a second motor kicks in, basically. Horinieva experiencing that second motor right now, hard on the brakes, down the inside, and makes it stick so far, but actually makes it stick for the rest of the corner as well. Sometimes we see it that these guys go slide a bit too wide on the outside then, at the exit of the corner, and then get one of those beautiful over and unders. Over Trengereit, still all over the back of the number 7 ahead of him, of Zucchero, not quite able to make a move there yet, keeping it tight on the inside to use as much space as possible on the outside as it just slightly drops to off-camber on the exit.
You've got to remember, most of the field are also going and doing some classic endurance racing as well, so it's switching the mindset from tin top racing to single-seaters, as Trengereit unfortunately getting a little bit of a tank slapper on the exit. 400 horsepower underfoot, and there's Pedro just trying to mind out of the way of everyone. He's down at 17th with a fair amount of damage to that car, limping it around at this stage of the game. Advance cooling over the feet and the radiator, but not quite what you want to have here at Watkins Glen.
And Choco also trying to make a move. Obviously, 18th place, his current number is number 12, so below the position where you want to be. And speaking of positions where you don't want to be, Nick Wiberts, unfortunately, just before rejoining the main layout from the loop part, well, I guess he spun off on the exit and then hit the tire wall there. That's gonna be some suspension damage, probably.
So easy to do, just overcorrect the car, get on the power too early, game, set, match. No ABS, no traction control, no rev protection. It is absolute flat out, as we do see likes of Olsen diving down the inside, hoping to get the drive, waits on the brakes. Can he make the pass? Moving up to 9th, unfortunately not. Olsen tried his luck, couldn't get that done. We'll have to wait it out a little bit more on the 40.
And that's a very strong performance from number 40 here right now, making the Brabham Colors very, very proud with this. Toby Kotinemi, meanwhile, 4/10 was the gap for quite some laps. Now he's slowly starting to gain again, dropping Verbruggen behind in the process. But Verbruggen, I don't think he's too worried. Once these two start fighting, he's going to be all over the back of them once again.
Just gotta bide your time every step of the way. Tope doing everything he can to go and run right into that gearbox of Valenteus ahead of him, not wanting him to run too far ahead. He knows the points are crucial in the F1 category, and it's all about maximizing the grip now. It's all about maximizing the points from round 4 onwards, because there is no way you can go and catch up to Valenteus if he keeps that winning streak. Someone needs to break it, and Tope is going to be that driver. He wants to be that driver. He is absolutely chomping at the bit. He tasted what first place is, was, and forever will be, that sweet cherry. Unfortunately, Valenteus is going to make sure to deny him of that sweet taste yet again.
He got so close last week at Brands Hatch, swapping lead with Valenteus multiple times in the closing laps. Now he's looking on the inside again, but slips back just a little bit. Both of them with, look at that, the 4-wheel slide into the corner. My goodness, those two are just pushing on the absolute limit right there.
The counter steer, the trust in one another. You as a driver have to trust your competition to keep it all together, to give you just enough room. And both these drivers having a go at one another. Kevin Verbruggen unfortunately falling a little bit behind as he tries to close the distance, and that's going to allow Seb to just make up that little bit of time to Kevin, who lost the slipstream, but an absolute slugfest at the top here. And Valenteus, who's been a dominating run in the Lotus 49 for quite some time, looks like this season is having a little bit more of a challenge put on him.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Kotkaniemi now proved for multiple rounds in a row that he's able to match that pace. He's just not 100% able to string it all together, but there's ambition in those eyes. There was ambition in that voice last time as well, even though he is cool, calm, collected all the time in the interviews. And Yet on track, you see that fire, you see the precision where he goes in and out of the corner, and he's not ready or even thinking about giving up that chase, because once again, you see that gap drop under 3/10, under 2/10, and all over the back of Valenteus. 4P1 takes all of the curb on the left-hander, all of the curb on the right-hander as well, and on the right-hander here as well. Then slides a bit on the outside, but here's all of that slipstream now. Valenteus going defensive, going with the next move to the side again. You can see that he knows there's a threat there.
Lap 8 out of 19, and so far some great racing right through the field as Olsen trying to have a look at Poulter ahead of him in the 40 car, all the way out from Australia in the original Lotus colours. Unfortunately, didn't quite have the inside line. Lost out that little bit of drive. Olsen moving up to 9th. Poulter down into 10th and trying to fight back every which way possible. But John Olsen and Bill Tyler are starting to close up the gap, and they're bringing a long list with them.
That's the difficult part here, you know, getting completely past as well. Well, in this case, Poulter, he's in a very opportune spot, and that is not an opportune spot at all. That's Strangadate finally losing the rear end there, pushing out for many laps, and I think that was Sakaro that was also caught out there just after he had gotten past, and that's not what you want to see at all.
Two of them hooking wheels and definitely going to be feeling it on the suspension. Leo trying to keep it all together. The understeer with snap oversteer that's going to be coming out of these cars now means that you've got to be so careful on the braking, so careful on throttle application, but at the same time, you start trying to figure out what is the car going to do. Glenn Becker trying to push a little bit harder. He's in 14th position, not having an easy run at the moment. Looks towards the inside, couldn't quite get it done. And take a look at Josephine all over the back, pushing harder and harder. She told me she's under the weather. She's doing the endurance race as well, but wanted to go and take a top 10 here in the Lotus 49s.
Well, you know, the old saying goes, if you're feeling under the weather, if you're feeling sick, the easiest way to deal with a fever or to deal with a sickness is to sweat it out. And, well, with this amount of wheeling that you have to do to drive fast in these cars, I think that's a very, very good route to take, Josephine Becker.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself, Nicholas, but let's keep an eye on this fight for the lead, because it is just back and forth, and both drivers pushing harder and harder. They're on lap 9 out of 19 at the moment, but who has got the edge? Valenteus is keeping that little bit of momentum, but Tope is on the back of him, pushing harder and harder, both of them wearing down those tires, getting a lighter tank underneath them, and trying everything they can to keep it all together. But as the tank is getting lighter, the cars are getting squirrely, and the drivers are doing everything they can to push. You can see Tope having to counter steer quite a bit to just keep the car in track, and also the heel and toe becoming more and more crucial to get it absolutely pinpoint right. And I'm going to ask you now, Nicholas, who do you think's going to get it? Valenteus or Tope? I'm putting my money on Tope.
Oh my goodness, that is a very difficult call. Tope Kotkaniemi, of course, with fantastic form in the last couple of races. And, you know, as Valenteus stayed in first place for all those races, Kotkaniemi was on his tail the entire time. But is he able to make that final move there? We see once again hard on the edge there throughout the entire S's. Valenteus not electing to do wild defensive maneuvers this time. He's closing on the brakes, over the bump on the back straight, on the inside. But look at that once again. Valenteus, he just knows how to accelerate perfectly with this car to just keep it barely within that grip level, where he still keeps enough traction to stay at. And once again here, an attack, but it's parried again.
Valenteus running to the edge of the circuit, just coming off that brake a little bit earlier, trying to get the car a little bit further towards the fringes of the circuit to close the door on Tope Kotkaniemi, who is not holding back. Once again, down towards the inside, a little bit late on the brakes, bleeding off early. Valenteus applying the throttle a little bit harder. You can see how the car squats down, pushing, trying to see where it's going to work out for him. He's got the advantage through the left. Volunteus is really having to work hard here. Tope is absolutely fighting him. He's been studying, waiting, pushing harder. And while these two have been slugging it out, we said, watch out for Kevin. There he is in the background, waiting for his opportunity to have a go for that top spot.
Just over 400 horsepower, just over 500 kilos, and, well, only tires and gravity holding these cars barely to the ground, but these guys are still, nevertheless, absolutely flying. Kotkaniemi almost inserting that cooling opening at the front of the Lotus 49. The radiator opening, pretty much like having the exhaust of Volunteus inserted into that. That's how close he got. But you know, he had to bleed off a bit more speed there. Now he has to actually check the back as well. Not going for a big defensive move. Instead, electing to keep his line, not bleed any speed, and then, well, keep it a bit more predictable there. As we also see in the back there, Nieve and Tixier side by side down the back stretch as well.
And take a look at Kevin Verbruggen. He waited, he's gone for it. And these cars have the equivalent horsepower of a GT3 with no aero, and the drivers are fighting incredibly close. Whoever said it can't be done, well, they've never seen Volunteers, Kotkaniemi and Verbruggen having a fight for first place, because at the moment, all three of them have a chance to take victory here at Watkins Glen, at the Classic Boot, to push out a little bit harder, to maximize the points. But who is going to come out on top? Verbruggen is absolutely all over the gearbox of Kotkaniemi ahead of him, and Volunteers just not pulling away.
And that's the difficult part, you know, the slipstream on all of these straights keeps you quite close enough. And Volunteus, he is incredibly good on the brakes and out of the corners, but Kotkaniemi, he's just good enough that he can constantly keep in touch. And also, as soon as Volunteus makes one mistake, Kotkaniemi is always there, all over the back of him, and ready to attack once again. And you can parry one attack, you can parry 2, 3, 4, but at some point you slip up, and that's when Kotkaniemi is there.
Tixier trying to keep ahead of Nieve, and take a look at Gary Ho, turning him in, trying to see where he can make up a bit of time, as they all on lap 17 out of 19. It is time running out. It's that final push, and this is where we start to see the mistakes happen. Drivers starting to feel worn out, drivers pushing harder and harder and going over and above the limits. The question is, who can do it? As we do see Jorge look around the outside, couldn't quite get it all hooked in for Seb, but now Gary trying to close up that distance. Nieve trying once again for the inside, had to switch to the outside. Seb leads the charge in through the left-hander.
Lowe's for the first spot behind the podium. Nieve looking for the outside now. Not quite the optimal way, but maybe trying to force an over and under. But Tixier is not falling for it, so Jorge Nieve going for an over and over, so to say. Once again, looking here, left, right, bit of a wiggle just before the braking zone. And man, it's absolutely breathtaking to watch these guys race. Look at how sideways they're coming out of that. And still, that's not losing time. That's basically the optimal way to go through these corners with these cars. That's what's really mind-boggling here.
And everyone's got to remember, when you're running this close, your brake marker actually moves back a little bit, because you don't want to go right into the gearbox of your competitor. So you really got to map out what you're going to do. As time runs out, drivers pushing harder and harder. The question is, who's going to get it through the gears properly? Who's going to be at the top of the running? And so far, Nieve pushing more and more. 6 laps left in this race, apologies. And take a look at Seb around the outside. Puts her wheel slightly off, lost the drive, and immediately Nieve gets right back into the gearbox. Every time he seems to get that little bit more of a run, he just drifts the car out a little bit wider. That car is a little more loose than he would have liked, as Seb guards the inside line.
And Nieve now with the overspeed, shooting past on the outside. Can he make it stick? That's the big question. Tixier late on the brakes, keeps the nose in. Front axle overlaps with the rear axle, both of them running completely parallel there, a whole car width in between them. But honestly, I'd like that as a safety space going side by side through these corners here. And Neva makes it past with a completely clean run through now.
Take a look at Gary Ho and Leo Sequeiro closing up as well. While these two ahead have been boxing with one another, take a look at them. But we've got a replay as well coming up here at the GSRC. And this is Tope going for the likes of Valenteos. Dive for the inside line, nearly into the gearbox, ran out wide. Can he keep it out of the wall? Only just. Kevin from Bruggen says thank you very much. And Tope overcooking it over the bump. Got sideways as Nieve round the outside of Seb Texia. Can he do it? Unfortunately not. Seb really leans back on him.
And that's actually Texia's counter from the move we saw just before the replay. Nieva retains the lead out of these two right now, but look at Texia's overspeed, getting close enough to the 5 DS25 ZF gearbox of the Lotus 49 ahead to actually read the individual gear ratios. And Texia fully immersed here with a moving rig, with the VR headset, with the actual Lotus 49 steering wheel and an H pattern, still defending hard. And there's actually left traffic ahead as well now, so it's getting even more spicy here in this four-way battle.
And Gary trying to close up as we do see Seb really chops it. Leo into the dirt trying to avoid. He opted to the right-hand side. Wrong line there. Seb trying to keep it all together. This is absolutely mental. This is epic racing. This is Lotus 49 racing. Some of the best on iRacing, that's for certain. As Seb trying to keep it all together, counter steer after counter steer, a quick blip of the throttle, trying to keep the car ahead. But at the moment, he is fighting for his life in fourth, with Nieva in fifth. And the moment both of them take a breath, they're going to have Gary Ho and Leo Sequeiro right into the gearbox.
And side by side, and so hard. You can see how the front properly compresses down on the brakes. And Tixie just a little bit too late there. Nieva makes it back through, and his battle's just going to keep on going. Speaking of the battle, Kotinemi made his way past Verbruggen again, left him in the dust, so something must have happened there as well. But I'll be honest, with that replay we saw earlier with Kotinemi there, I didn't think anyone could save something like that. And here we have the replay. This is what happened to Verbruggen. He had the exact same thing. Just too aggressive in the braking zone, into the long right-hander there. Just gets it over the bump. Somehow saves it even before crossing over that crest. But of course, that must have hurt. That must have hurt the tires especially.
Thank heavens for the new tyre model update coming in from iRacing for these cars, that it doesn't go and overheat like it used to. Otherwise, that would be just death upon it. Leo, who landed up with a bit of contact earlier in this race, well, you can say his car's perfectly fine in 7th position, going after Gary Ho. Looking down the inside, and there's that bump. Take a look how they get a little bit of lift over it as well, as it's just a fight all over, dodging cars left and right. Glenn Becker trying to defend against Josephine, who goes around the outside. This is just racing all over, and what an incredible run. And each of the drivers having to have lots and lots of track awareness and knowledge to make sure that they can defend, mind out the way, and push that little bit harder.
It's just that they have a lot of track in general. You know, this track for these cars is monstrously wide. 3 wide, 4 wide, all possible here. And that's obviously such a fantastic way. And this is one of these few circuits. It's simplistic in its design, but every single corner you can go side by side in. You can try and make a move as everyone's once again compressing here hard on the brakes. Now ahead of Glenn Becker, it's Liski trying to have a look around, but once again compressing. Everyone's getting a bit too bunched up there. And that now puts Josephine Becker into a big fight for her position. And yeah, that's Mikhail Zavala profiting of the harmonica effect through the third to last corner there.
Zavala just going and saying thank you very much. Becker nearly into the gearbox. So Josephine nearly went into Glenn Becker's gearbox. Now has to try and fight back. Zabala's not going to make it easy at the moment. Holding just carrying enough momentum. And the two of them have got to work a little bit with one another to try and bring themselves back up through the field. Seb Texier once again trying to move up on the Ever. That 4th place spot is open cards at the moment. And right behind them, they've got Leo Sequeira, who closes up at a rate of knots. He's got past Gary Ho and now looks ahead to the battle for the 2 ahead. And now Leo not going to have an easy time to see past Seb at the moment, who I don't think is watching his mirrors. I think he's concentrating apexes, exits, and what on earth is that number on that first gear of the Ever's car?
And that's that difficulty here, you know, with completely open setups, you have to perfectly dial in every single gear, and also basically, well, as I said, you know, it has a big peak at the torque at 6,000 RPM, and ooh, that is very, very late on the brakes. Texier falls down to 7th place. He has the speed to make it back up, gets up to stick instantly again, so Gary Ho not quite able to profit from that mistake, but he's going to be knocking himself over the head for that. You know, damn it, 3 laps to go. We have to make this proper. We have to get into the finish line properly. 2 laps to go after crossing a line even. So, yeah, that is now pretty much hoping for a mistake from someone else. This man here hasn't made any mistakes at all.
Not at the moment. Still time to go. They say it's never over until the checkered flag comes out and the car is parked on the trailer. Valenteos cutting it close against the walls, but this is what he needs to do to keep ahead of Kotanami in behind him, and Kevin Verbruggen still holding on for 3rd place at the moment. The top 3 a bit more strung out from what they used to be, but 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th are still on top of one another. But if anything happens to Kevin Verbruggen now, he's going to get brought back into that train behind him and will have to fight for his life to maintain the final spot on the podium.
That's going to be the big difficulty here. You know, he's going to have to really keep it together, and with him, as opposed with Kotanami caught the car and kept it normally going. Verbruggen, he had a full lockup. He had to fully get the car stopped because of the speed that he went into the corner with. So those tires will not just be worn and overheated, they will be flat spotted as well. So if he has a motion rig, he's going to basically have the experience as if he's sitting on a jackhammer.
Bit of rallycross feeling as you're bouncing up and down. We did see Nieva getting a little bit sideways, trying to put it all together. Valenteos now catching up to a bit of traffic, and this is where Tope is going to be hoping that the traffic goes and slows Valenteos up just enough to try and back him out. But with 1 lap to go, it's all or nothing as the drivers give it that final big push down to the wire. Valenteos down the inside in turn 1, an easy pass past the 27, and just keeping it all together. Wants to see it through to the end. This monstrous grid of 50 cars that started, to say that you finished ahead of them all is a hell of achievement.
And I mean, at this point, he's going to have done it at 4 times in a row, and we already know him. You know, he's been at it for seasons. He's an incredibly fast driver. And, I mean, there's also no shame in coming 2nd or 3rd next to, you know, that unbelievably speedy Ukrainian here. Verbruggen uses all of the track and a little bit more to keep it going. And actually, they're hitting a little bit of lap traffic still. So Verbruggen may look into, you know, maybe there's something that can still happen. But everyone in this community, you know, very tightly knit, sharing setup tips with each other, and just generally always these very, very positive vibes that everyone gets with each other. Everyone here is truly enjoying the racing, and it's always great to see these guys race with each other. And Valenteos, at the moment, still undethroned unless he makes mistakes in, well, 3 corners left. Nope. Then it's only 2 corners left to go, and I don't think he'll make a mistake there either.
Andreas Valenteos once again looking to take another victory under his belt, being a dominating driver. Final corner, had to work for it in the first half, but managed to walk away in the second. Valenteos takes the victory at Watkins Glen for round 4. Tope Cotonini finishes in second with Verbruggen, but it's a fight all the way through the field still as everyone gives it their last big push. Aku hoping to get that little bit of a run. Zabala keeping ahead of Josephine Becker. It is a Constantine moment as they go heading towards the final corner, flat on the gas. Zabala bided his time, moved up to 15th. He's going to be happy on that one. Josephine Becker down in 16th. What a drive for every single one of our competitors. And what an incredible, incredible race. I do want to give a well done to those that got out the pits and still managed to cross the line, as it's all about scoring the points. You do have drop rounds, but you do want to have at least 1 point on the board.
Absolutely, you do have some drop rounds, and Valenteo's actually feeling so good. He's actually taking the bus stop chicane. But as you said, you want to have a consistent result every single time. Ideally, you always want to try and stay pretty much on top of it, because a drop round is maybe good, but if you're already pretty much going in the first third of the season, well, this is my drop round, the pressure later on mounts up all the more.
Absolutely. Well said. Nicholas, it's been a great race, but as we come up with our results, we're also going to be having a chat to our drivers. Andreas Valenteos taking the victory with a whopping 2.5 second over Tope, along with Kevin Verbruggen in third, Jorge Never in fourth. Fifth is Leo Sequeira, followed by Seb Texio. They had a brilliant battle with Gary Ho right behind over Tingerade. In 8th, 9th is Lois Olsen, and Bure Poulter holds on to that top 10.
Well, Poulter also from the F2 drivers, really excellent result for him. Next up in 11th place, John Olsen and Bill Tyler. That was this long train that we saw at the end, finishing all behind each other. Glenn Becker in 13th, Akuliski in 14th, then Mikael Zabala profiting off of that harmonica effect in the third to last corner a couple laps before the race. Josephine Becker holding on despite feeling under the weather to finish 16th. Jason Klapper in 17th. Then after that group, we had Pedro Temeladri in 18th. Just behind that, we had Benjamin Soko in 19th and Marcio Antonio Lopez Salgado in 20th.
Absolutely amazing. As we head over, 21st is Carl Ridley, followed by Victor Alonso Diaz, Andres Pecht finishing in 23rd. 24th is Sandeep Bunji, Michael Dresser, along with 26th, Requinto Janke. Thomas Tuba down in 27th. 28th is Kurt Clapper, Andres Bruno, and Mats Lund rounding out our top 30.
But it keeps going. It's a truly monstrous grid that we had here. 31st, Troy Mortensen. Then after that, we had Jason Terman. Then Brandon White and Tyler Sheath in 33rd and 34th. The last ones to stay on the lead lap. Then one lap down, we had Juan Goncalves, Oscarel Islane, and Onat Oglakcioglu in 37th. Then in 38th, 39th, and 40th, we had Tobias Hanvi, Thomas Sonisinia, and Ricardo Ruiz.
And as said, a monstrous field, 50 cars started. Campbell Wills holds on for 41st, Rob Pumley, along with Brand Warren, Angel Granda, D.W. Holmes, a little bit further down in 45th, Logan Wilson, Ivan Modormo, Nick Bubbitts in 48th. 49th is Connor Babel, and Alan Graham rounds out our top 50, but did not get off the line, unfortunately, out in this race. What a race. What an amazing time. And our classics showing off an incredible run. But let's go and have a chat to our drivers as we got Tope Kotumimi taking second place. Tope, how are you feeling after that one? First half of the race, it was a charge to the front against Valenteos.
Yeah, I was looking for a win maybe, but I still need to find that one more tenth. I need one more tenth. Where is it?
It was an incredible run. Now, we got to ask what happened as you went over the bump. We just saw the car get out of shape underneath you. Well done on holding it. But in your mind, were you thinking, that's it for my race? That is my podium gone?
No, I was just thinking that it's the wind that is gone from that incident. I just outbraked myself. It happens. Shouldn't do it, but it happens.
Well, I've got to say, it's absolutely wonderful to see you battling it out. You had Kevin Verbruggen, that top 3 battle, stressing you out that little bit more. What was the game plan coming into this race with 3 cars on the grid?
I didn't have a plan. I didn't have practice much later in the week, and just see. I think Otto had much more pace on the week than I, so I wasn't expecting to be in the front row. But apparently it happened, so I just tried my pace, made a mistake on lap 1, and then it was battle with Audrius, and it's tough when the pace is so close. There's no easy ways to get past when there's no speed difference, or you're slower.
Well, it was an amazing race. Nicholas, I know that you've got a question or two for our second place and second in the F1 topic.
Well, other than, how do you manage to always be so upbeat, Like, that's the epitome of mental health here. And I think that's also a secret to your speed, You're the happiest guy I know racing these cars.
Right. I mean, it has to be. It has to be, because this racing with these guys where 1 cent is to decides if you win or not. So it gets me all sweaty. So you have to think positive,
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, man. Great to have you along as always, and next time for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. I need that win sooner or later.
It's coming. Round 5 on the way. Topic Kotonimi taking second place, and what a race it was. Nicholas, I've got to say, Watkins Glen has always been an exciting circuit, and our Lotus 49s have been. But there's still plenty of racing here on the GSRC. We got next time out at Road America on the 18th of April. Keep an eye out, 13:30 UTC as they battle their way to the top. But there is still plenty of racing coming up. We have got the IMSA Vintage Series heading out to Laguna Seca as they look to take on the battle. Our Sim Racing Republic GT Open happens on Sunday 12th. Classic Lotus heads over to Interlagos, and our Porsche Esports Carrera Cup heads to Indianapolis. There is plenty of racing, whether you're a fan of single-seaters, classics, tin tops, or even just the vintage. Nicholas, I gotta say, this has been an incredible race and an incredible season thus far.
Absolutely. I mean, basically what you sign up with if you either race or watch these races here, it's always, from the beginning to the end, full of action, and it's the purest form of driving, Stephen.
And the Vintage Series always stands to the top. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining us here at the Make sure you hit the subscribe button along with the notification icon and keep your foot flat on the gas as we charge on for the rest of this amazing series here at the Grand Prix Legends. From myself, Stephen Koenig, and my co-commentator, the legend, Nicholas Hill, Daniel Costello on cameras, and Dougie Beard rounding out with our amazing camera angles. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a good night, everybody.
This is iRacing.